Now, talking about global NATO, there were some developments in the last couple of days. There was a publication of an article by Evan Ellis, who's from the U.S. Army War College. The article titled Strategic Role of Latin America in Global Conflict over Taiwan. And this includes the idea that Latin America should be a resource base for the United States to loot, and the threat of China Belt and Road development there is a threat against the United States. This is pretty blatant, isn't it? I mean, this is the new face of colonialism.
Yeah, I mean, this article was published in a magazine of the Peruvian army, and therefore maybe this Evans Ellis thought that it's for a limited audience. But this article is actually quite revealing because he says, that there will be war with China latest by 2027 over Taiwan, and that war will be global, and therefore the countries of Latin America have no right to ally with the Belt and Road Initiative because this would give China access to resources in Latin America. Now, first of all, to say this, that there will be war with China by 2027 and this war will be global, and obviously planning for that war and preparing for that war, I think that's just insane. It's insane. Who wants to plan for World War III and then think anybody will survive it? So if you thought that this was just a statement of some low level guy from the War College, well, now the head of the U.S. Southern Command, General Laura Richardson, basically said the same thing, and even being more specific, saying Latin America has all these raw materials. They have 60% of the world's lithium. They have rare earth. They have, other crucial minerals and raw materials. And therefore, Latin America can absolutely not be allowed to make deals with the adversary, meaning Russia and China, because she says this is a total confrontation, including the whole gambit, air, sea, cyber, space. I mean, in a sense, yeah. And she says also that China would only make these infrastructure projects with countries in Latin America to lure them into the debt trap. Now, this is, I mean, I think, if people start to believe their own propaganda, it's really becoming bad. 150 countries of the developing sector are very happy to work with the Belt and Road Initiative because it gives them the first time the chance to have real infrastructure projects to overcome poverty, to have a hope to overcome the underdevelopment. And as for the debt trap, I mean, I think if you look at the record of which country is indebted with whom, you find that the majority of debt is going to banks of the Paris Club, to the IMF and the World Bank, and to the West, and that it is not China at all. So obviously, with the election of the Lula government in Brazil, you have now the overwhelming majority of countries in Latin America who are, determined to cooperate with China in the formation of a new world economic order. But you have at the same time massive destabilizations going on in many countries. Brazil being the most violent so far, and Peru naturally. So I think it's really amazing what is going on.
Well, her comments, she also said, we are not in competition, we are in conflict. And she said, we're not going to allow this to occur in our neighborhood. Doesn't that remind you of what Brzezinski said about no Japan south of our border?
Yeah, and it also reminds me of the famous or infamous Kissinger NSM 200 memorandum from 1974, which was only published somewhere in the 90s, which is, where he said very blatantly that all the raw materials of the world belong to the United States or are of US national security interest.